welcome back to Beyond the Diagnosis. We have been on a bit of a hiatus, but that's okay because God has been stirring up some things. And one of the things that He has stirred up is bringing me together with my good friend, Raeshon Williams, who I have known for over 20 years. I am so excited to be interviewing her today. She is a nurse and she has been in nursing almost 30 years, which is crazy. I know, she's fountain of youth. Can't believe it. But she has been a nurse as long as I have been alive. And I was so ecstatic to be able to bring her to you all so that she can share her expertise and her knowledge for all of the families who have been impacted by pancreatic cancer. There are so many things that families do not know, and I am sick and tired of it. My dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2019. He passed away in 2020. And one of the worst parts of our experience was just not knowing what was available to us. We were in the dark about quite a few things. And if you aren't familiar with my story, I'll share a bit more about that later because I want to dive in and talk more about Raeshon. So Raeshon has covered the gamut in nursing. She's been in home health, SNF, she's done hospice, palliative care. She's a certified wound care specialist, and now she works in nursing administration at her hospital, where now she has behind the scene knowledge with patient flow and family care and advocacy. So I am so excited to get started and have this necessary conversation about the hidden secrets that families don't know in healthcare. So welcome, Shani. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I'm really, really excited. And I haven't been a nurse just that long yet. Almost 20 years, though.
Almost 20.
Almost 20 years. I think this year makes year 19 for me. So 2027 would be year 20 for me. So not almost quite 30, but I do plan on being in nursing for many, many years to come.
That's so crazy because maybe it's because you've always been so caring. So just to give y'all a little background, me and Raeshon met when I was 8 years old. And Raeshon, I believe you're about 12. And
Yes.
I've always been connected to her. The first time I ever saw her, I was like, ooh, beeline, connection. And she just always had a very compassionate and loving and kind heart. She has a mothering and nurturing nature to her naturally, which she is a mom of my babies, my nieces. They're not babies anymore. It's so crazy. And so I believe that I think it was almost 30 for me because she's just always been a caring person. So not me adding years, but speaking of experience, my girl.
That could totally be it though. It could just be the fact that I was definitely born to be a nurse.
Amen. We love a calling. And that is what is going to usher us in to our very first question. So, for those who don't know you, can you share a little bit more about your journey in nursing and healthcare?
Absolutely. Let's see. Where did I start? It was way back when. No, I graduated from high school in 2005, Long Beach, Jordan.
Hey.
And I thought that I wanted to be a teacher. And so I was going to take the necessary steps into becoming a teacher. And I remember my mom, who's also a nurse, and I asked her if I could go to work with her one day. So I ended up going to work with her just because I was trying to figure out what it is that I really wanted to do. And I went to work with her, and I was there shadowing her for about a good maybe 2 hours. And I said, "Yep, this is what I want to do. This I think I found it." So I asked my mom in 2006 if because I was taking small classes, like classes at a community college. And I remember asking her if I could quit going to school for to the community college and if I could just go to a trade school. And she said, "For what?" And I was like, "I want to be a nurse." So I ended up going to a trade school when I was 18, tender age of 18, and completed that course. Um, took my boards, got my license, and became a baby nurse. I was a nurse at 19 years old. Um, and haven't looked back since. I don't see myself doing anything outside of that, but I still do want to be a teacher. Now I just know that I want to be a teacher of nurses or a teacher of patients or a teacher of like advocating for people and just showing people how to navigate through this healthcare system because it is totally a different language. If you don't know the language, you are totally lost. So that's just my a little snippet of my journey of how I ended up becoming a nurse.
Thank you for sharing that. I never knew you actually started off wanting to go into education. So that's actually news to me. But I'm not shocked that the Lord brought it back full circle and now you want to be a teacher of nurses because
Yes.
that's just in you. So it makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
She's a great teacher, as you're going to see that more in this interview as we continue on. So, with that being said, what first led you into the medical field and with your journey between hospitals, home health, hospice care, etc.? What has that journey really been like for you?
Ooh, that's a great question. That journey has literally been Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 for me.
Mm.
Trusting in the Lord with all my heart and leaning not on my own understanding and allowing Him to guide me in all my ways as I acknowledge Him in everything that I do. I remember starting off in the SNF, in this skilled nursing facility, and being there for 8 years. And I remember by year 5, I was already done. Because if you know, then you know. So by year 5, I was already done. And I remember trying to apply to different hospitals to get into acute settings. And with my years of experience, I was for sure that I was going to get something. But I got denied by hospitals and I just could not understand why. One of them actually said, because I don't have enough experience. I was like, 5 years? Like, I've been doing this. Like, not only am I passing meds to 40 patients and advocating for 40 patients and doing IDTs, which is interdisciplinary teams for 40 patients, and, calling doctors and saying, hey, my patient's taking too much medication. What can we do to taper it down? Can we implement dietary instead of pharmaceuticals? So I was really confused. So then I tried to go into case management at that same place and got denied again because they said that they needed someone with experience. Come to find out, they hired a new grad as as the case manager, and it was then that I kind of became a little frustrated. But instead, I just prayed. And I prayed and I said, Lord, wherever you have me, please send me. If it is to be here, then keep me here and keep me here for whatever it is that I'm supposed to be here for. And again, that was at year 5. And so I said I was there for 8 years. So, those extra 3 years was literally God keeping me there and cultivating me and training me up into being the nurse that I am today. I learned time management. That is then where I really dove into being a patient advocate because there's only so many medications that you can pass within a certain time frame. I spoke to families in regards to the care and of their loved ones and how they could go about like meeting with the doctors, not just leaving their loved ones there and leaving it up to the nurses, but for them to be advocates for their loved ones as well. I just really cultivated who I was as and who God was calling me to be. And without even like by then, I was like, okay, well, fine. I think I found what I'm going to do. I'm just going to stay here. But another nurse who I had trained maybe 2 days, and that was about 5 years into me being there. So we only said good morning to each other. We worked in totally different departments, but she had left, and I got a call from HR from from another hospital, the one that I'm currently employed at. And she said, hey, I need you to put in an application. And I said, but I didn't apply to anything. She goes, I know. That's why I'm telling you to put in an application. And then I was like, but I was lost thinking it was a scam. And she said, your name came across my desk because we just hired a nurse. And she's pretty much they asked her, if you could bring anyone along with you, who would it be? and she gave them my name. And again, I literally only trained this girl maybe for 2 days, and that's 8-hour shifts, so 16 hours she was with me, and I guess I made that much of an impact on her for her to say I no longer deserve to be there, or maybe it was just God using her as a vessel to get me where I needed to be, and got the job at PIH in home health, and haven't looked back. Been there since. Been there since, just growing and growing. Home health was my first journey. And then after being in home health, as a matter of fact, I do recall God telling me that he was going to have me speak to the nations. And when he said that to me, I had no idea what that meant. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't understand. But in home health, I literally spoke to the nations. I spoke to every type of patient, colors, skin color, race, ethnicity possible. Because one thing, even if we look different on the outside, our body still works the same exact way. So being able to just be able to speak to them in that comfort of their own home and give them question or answers to the questions that they have been seeking, and actually being able to take the time and sit with them in their living room and tell them and teach them about things that they were going through, newly diagnosed or even diagnosed for quite some time, just not understanding how their body is adapting to it, was a great experience. From there, led me to the Wound Healing Center, which actually caused me to go into becoming a wound certified nurse, which I absolutely love because you just see God all through the healing of the body, especially when it comes to wounds. And then now being in administration, seeing how things work on the back end of getting patients into the hospital and making sure that they're getting the care and the comfort that they need. Also supporting families with problem solving and things of that nature. So just climbing the ladder, that, well, looking like climbing the corporate ladder, however, just enjoying all the aspects and areas of nursing. So that's kind of been my journey over the last 20 years, give or
That's
take.
amazing. And I want to take a moment to circle back to you mentioning Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, because I really want families to take hold and grasp that particular passage. And if you're not, familiar with that passage, it simply states that we are to trust God with all our heart and lean not onto our own understanding. And I think it's so important that families take hold of that passage, because when you are caring for a loved one, you don't know what the heck is going on, and you do have to trust
Right.
God.
Hmm.
And you can't even trust the resources. Like, God provides the resources, he makes the tools and the people available, like yourself. Because Raeshon, and we'll talk a little bit more about this a little bit later, but Raeshon also helped my dad in a lot of capacities while he was alive. So I know a lot of people don't know that. So I'm excited to share that. But people don't realize that if you are not connected to the source of life,
Oh,
who can give you the wisdom in uncertain times when you don't know where you're going to go next, you don't know what
listen,
decisions to make, or sometimes the neither decision is wrong, but which one is better,
correct.
and so just to hear you mention that passage and to talk about just trusting God, even having to remain somewhere that you were ready to leave, you were ready to go, but trusting that he would keep you in it anyway. And like you said, you were cultivated in that environment. And then someone, you didn't even have to apply for where he's had you now. Someone just mentioned your name. And I think that's the importance of connection and community and relationships, because a lot of times what God will provide and bless you with won't even come from you seeking it out.
Correct.
So I just wanted to take a moment to encourage families to adopt that passage into your memory and make it something that it becomes a mantra for you.
Mm.
With that being said, I wanted to know, with you mentioning the nurse that reached out to you, is she also the same nurse who allowed you to further promote up being at PIH and getting into the administration side?
No, she is not. We worked in home health together for maybe 2 years. And then from there, none of the jobs that or promotions that I have within where I'm at in the organization that I'm working for right now have I ever applied for. Not one. Not one single job have I ever applied for. It has literally always been someone meeting me and saying, I'm going to move you here.
Mm,
Someone meeting me and saying, oh, your boss isn't going to like this because I want you on my team. Even to the point of administration, this being a new role for the nurses in the hospital. And it's a group of 5 of us who, of umpteenth nurses, that the my boss just decided to handpick us, and I've been in this position now for almost 3 years.
mm,
So not only just, it's not a position that was already created, it was really a position that we kind of cultivated and created and tried to figure out what's going on. We are literally almost like the heart of the hospital, if you will, patient flow. And maybe later I'll be able to explain what that looks like. But no, none of, she's not in she does not have any, I thank her for bringing me to PIH. However, she is definitely my sister in Christ because we prayed together those 16 hours that, so she saw something in me. She saw our spirits connected. It was the Holy Spirit working in both of us. And I'm so appreciative of her. Her name is Evelyn, by the way.
shout out Evelyn. Hey, girl. That's amazing. I love that you talked about being handpicked for every position.
Mhm.
And I actually want to use that perspective to shift us into you sharing more of your personal experience with caregiving yourself.
Mhm.
Because I think that a lot of times, I know a lot of times talking to families impacted by pancreatic cancer, they're like, we didn't sign up for this. And you're right, you didn't. None of us do, but we were handpicked.
Right.
Because when you look back on it, who better to do it than you? I know a
Absolutely.
lot of times families get frustrated because, like, well, my siblings aren't stepping up and I'm doing this all by myself and I feel isolated and family and friends have walked away and nobody's really around. And we're going to touch on those aspects because that's very valid to feel that way.
Mhm.
But I do want to encourage a different perspective in the fact that in God's sovereignty, we were handpicked for a role. And yes, it's overwhelming and it's frustrating and it makes you angry for a variety of reasons. And we don't want to negate any of that. But also, who better to step up to the plate in such a role than you? So please, Shani, please share with us what your personal experience with caretaking for loved ones has been like.
Well, there has been several. Like she mentioned, I am a mother. My children are pretty healthy, so just making sure getting them to their doctor's appointments and all of those types of things. So, as a mother, yes, you are a caregiver naturally. But I would like to take into, I guess, another step. And I remember when I was me and my husband first started dating. So my husband was diagnosed when he was younger with Crohn's disease, and being a nurse, I'm looking at all the signs and symptoms and all of those things. And so I was like, there's no way. His signs do not point to Crohn's. Like, I'm no doctor, but I definitely can assess. I was like, and there is no way that this doesn't look like Crohn's. So I was asking him all of these questions. I even went to my mother-in-law, who I say, and I asked her all of these questions, and I was literally assessing my husband, or at the time he was my fiance. And so I remember asking her, well, when did they give him this diagnosis? She's like, oh, he's had it since he was a little boy. I'm like, yeah, something just don't seem right. So all these years went by. We got married. And before we got married, he was in the hospital, back and forth, in and out of the hospital, in and out of the hospital. Mind you, I'm only his fiance. And so I said, I remember one day looking at him as he was literally wasting away and laying in the hospital bed. And I'm sitting there and I'm exhausted. I had already reached up to here. My patience outside of being a nurse was gone. My patience that I had as a mother was gone. My patience that I had and the love that I have for him was like dwindling. I was just exhausted. And so I had been taking care of everybody else because my job is to take care of everybody else. And then coming home and taking care of him, seeing him consistently lose weight, seeing him not really eating things, seeing him just, in a sense, spiral down the drain. And I said, no, something has to give. So we went to the hospital. He's laying there. And I said to myself, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? Is this, like, the question really came to mind? I said, and God said, well, in sickness and in health. I'm like, yeah. Till death do you part. Yeah. And we always want to talk about the rich part, but we don't want to talk about the poor. We want to talk about the health part, but we don't want to talk about the sickness. We want to talk about the life part, but we don't want to talk about death. So it's all of those things that God was bringing to my memory as he was sleeping. My fiance at the time was sleeping in the bed. I literally was having this back and forth with flesh and spiritual, um, as I'm sitting at his bedside. And God said, I called you to this. I called you to be a nurse. And not only did I call you to be a nurse in the field, but I also called you to be a nurse in your home. And so being able to, it was in that moment that I was like, okay, now I have to be an advocate for my husband. So after that, taking him and getting him a second opinion, and come to find out that he more than likely has um, pyloric stenosis. Now, pyloric stenosis is when the sphincter that leads to your stomach is stenosed, like it does not move. So he was having a lot of trouble with having things pass through or digest, which made sense, which is why he ate a lot of soft foods, And so pyloric stenosis is something that's typically diagnosed in babies, which makes a lot of sense to what my mother-in-law said. He was diagnosed with this when he was a kid. So now this is something that he would have to either have surgically done, like surgically repaired, but it would have been a very risky surgery. So sharing all of that with you to say, this is pretty much something that he's going to have to live with for the rest of his life. And me have to deal with him for the rest of his life in dealing with this. So being that patient advocate for him, being the caretaker or the caregiver in this instance outside of at home. Because when you're at work, like I tell my kids all the time, and you guys could probably relate, when you go to the hospital, if I was just wearing regular clothes and I walked in the room and I gave you a gown and said, change it to this, I'll be back in 5 minutes. Are you really going to change into that gown? Are you going to question, who is she? What's she? I'm not, you think I'm about to? Absolutely not. But when I walk in with my nursing uniform on, my stethoscope or whatever, my badge, and I say, "Hey, here's a gown. I need you to put this on in 5 minutes, or put this on. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Please open it to the back." Do you question, or do you just say, "Oh, okay"? I'm going to go ahead and do, because you understand that I have the potential to help you and whatever it is that you're going through. It's in those moments that you are really removing all the layers that you have, and you are at your most vulnerable moment. You are pretty much absolutely naked, physically and literally. And so for me to be able to come into that space with someone in a professional manner should not look any different than me coming into that space in a personal manner when it comes to my husband. So I had to realize that I could not separate the two. I was a nurse in general, just in general. And so being able to be his advocate and going and getting a second opinion, and even in the midst of being tired and looking out for these resources and all of those things, really led me to being able to say, I think more families need to have this platform available to them for multiple reasons. One, I know because I'm a nurse, so I know the lingo. I know, you know, what to say, when to say it, how to say it, who to speak to, who do I need to talk to. But if I was not in the medical field, how much help would my husband have gotten? And so it saddens me to say that there's a lot of patients out there who do not have families, or family members who are in the medical field that can be able to translate, literally translate, what is happening, what is being said, what is being done, what steps to take, and all of those things. And it's not necessarily that the doctors don't know, but sometimes they need a little push. They need a little push. They need a little reminder because everybody is different. And so, saying that to say, it's be encouraged in whatever it is that you're going through. And then, ask questions. Ask questions, and God will definitely lead you to the right person and to get the answers that you need.
Amen. Thank you for that. I have so many follow-up questions with that because because you're right. So as Shawnee shared, with her being in the medical field, that gives her an advantage, but the average person is not. I myself have a background in science. My bachelor's is in biology as well as in kinesiology. And then I have the privilege of having friends who are in healthcare. So I have friends who are physicians, my friends who are nurses, and whatever I don't know from my own expertise and knowledge, I easily can call and text them. And I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. What would you recommend we do? How do we handle this? And so I have the support, but the average family does not.
Thank you so much for watching Beyond the Diagnosis. If this conversation helped you, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with a caregiver who needs it. Part 2 is coming soon. Don't miss it. See you then.